What's going on, y'all? Stuart here. I debated for a while whether to do a vlog or a blog or just kind of ignore this feeling altogether. Tonight I had a 2.5 hour conversation with a great family friend that, um, looking back in years to come, probably will be one of the turning points of my life. The things that we talked about and the issues that he's dealt with personally are some that I feel like God has given me such a burden for that for the 40 minutes it took me to drive home, I just couldn't shake. The only thing I could do was just to say, Jesus, help me. I can think of no other way to adequately describe the mountain that I feel like is in front of me, but other than to say, God, help me, because I can't do it on my own. Any efforts of my own that I would do that are not God ordained would be futile at best. I see the road ahead and I see that it's narrow. I see that it's winding. I see that it's steep. And it's not a road that many people want to travel. But what I see at the top is people, is a cause, is um, hurting people who need the compassion and the love and the caring and the kindness that only Jesus Christ offers. And I think that making that journey, while it will be hard and while it will be life changing, and it will undoubtedly likely take my whole life to accomplish anything in that arena, that I know if just one person is changed, then it all makes it worthwhile. Everything I would have been through, all the struggles, everything that I've done up until now, if one person were changed, then it would make all the difference in the world. I think about the story of an old man walking down a beach. In the distance, he notices a young boy picking up sand dollars and throwing them back into the ocean. And the man draws closer, and he sees that the sea, the beach is just it's littered as far as the eye can see with sand dollars. And he looks at the boy, and he just thinks to himself, "What you're doing it's purposeless. It's meaningless. It's a waste of time." So he asks the young boy, he says, "What are you doing?" And the boy replies, "I'm saving sand dollars." And he continues throwing them back in the ocean. And the old man looks down and he says, "But the beach is littered with dying sand dollars. What difference can you make?" And the boy simply picks up another one, chucks it back into the ocean, and says, "I just made a difference to that one." That's the type of feeling that I have right now, that even if it were just one, even if one person is impacted by my life in a positive way, that would help them to pursue the purposes and the plans that God has them for, that everything is worthwhile. I think one of the things that I just absolutely um, cannot stand is how the church has become the most uncompassionate place on the face of the earth. I think about this story in Matthew chapter 9, where he calls Matthew, he calls Levi, and he says, "Follow me." And so Matthew gets up and follows him. And then the next sentence, the next verse says, "While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, 'Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?' On hearing this, Jesus said, 'It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick.'" And I thought about how many times do those people who the church deems sick, the people who are struggling with adultery, or they're struggling with homosexuality, or they're struggling with fornication, or they're struggling with pornography or masturbation, or all these secret sins that we don't want to talk about, how often do those people come and sit in church and feel so uncomfortable, when the reality is that's the place that they should feel most comfortable? If the church is like a hospital, who goes to a hospital? It's sick people. It's not people who are healthy. The only healthy people you find at the hospital are the people helping the sick people. And yet, our churches across the country and across the world are the last place that someone who is sick in their spirit and even sick in their body would ever think to go. That lack of compassion, that lack of love that Christians have towards the world in general absolutely breaks my heart. As I was driving home tonight, I just couldn't help but just weep for the people who feel so unlovely, for the people who feel like the very place that should accept them unconditionally, because that's what Christ did, the church, that they feel like they could never step foot inside a church building or let alone be friends with Christians for fear that they be judged. And I'm so confused by this conflict, this hypocrisy that I see. And the only way I know to remedy it is to be the most authentic Christian that I could be. To be that Christian that Christ would be, where he's at the table, he's eating with tax collectors and sinners. And the religious people just sit there and look and say, why is he hanging out with those people? Why is he why does he care about those people? The people that the church cares about the least are oftentimes the people that they should care about the most. Yet instead, they're so wrapped up in being self righteous and arrogant, and yet ignorant to the reality of what's going on in those people's lives. How quickly we forget where we've come from. How quickly we forget that all sins are sins. No sin is greater than another. If someone is struggling with homosexuality and you just told a lie, you're both going to hell. The only difference is one of you looks better when you bust that gates wide open. There's so many people that are hurting, that are dying because we're silent. The church is silent to address the issues that are going on in our society because they make us feel uncomfortable. They make us look at ourselves and examine our own lives and see our own flaws that because we're human will always exist. And I can't help but think how many people are going to hell because the church is silent on the very issues about the very things that these people are dealing with. How many people are struggling with pornography or struggling with adultery or struggling with alcoholism or homosexuality that won't hearken the doors of the church to hear the one message that they need to hear more than anything else because they know that what they'll find inside that building, that the Christians that they will find in there, that they perceive that those Christians will reject them for who they are because most Christians have not learned to separate the sin from the sinner. Most Christians can't separate the two, and it's killing and sending to hell the communities in which we're a part. And it makes me sick and it breaks my heart. And it's given me this burden that I see I must do something about this. That I must, because I see the problem and I see the issues, that I must do something about it. I can no longer sit idly by and just watch it happen. So the first way I do something is to myself be what I want other Christians to be. That's the first step. Beyond that, I don't know. And that's where my burden comes in. It's so heavy, and I can't even begin to contemplate what the next steps are. All I can think to say is, Jesus, help me. God, give me the heart that you have for your people. Give me the compassion. Let my heart break for the things that break your heart, God. That's all I know to do. So that's what I'm going to do. And if you would like to join me, I would appreciate it. If you would not, that's on you. Now that you know what the issues are, you are fully accountable for them. I pray that you would join me in this journey, but at the same time, a good friend of mine once told me the people that mind don't matter, and the people that matter don't mind. Where do you find yourself tonight?